Break out the sunscreen and flip-flops. The 2023-24 school year is in the books at the University of Vermont.
And what a year it was across the athletic department, from a return trip to the Sweet 16, a first-ever conference title, and a WNIT run. We'll get into all of that later on in the show.
But we're kicking things off tonight with maybe the most consistently excellent Catamount program. That would be the men's basketball team. They're coming off another Americas championship and a trip to the NCAA tournament. And as we close in on the end of the wild roster rebuilding period, we sat down with John Becker to talk about the most recent Catamount group and how the team progresses moving forward. JB, we're kind of in the midst of the offseason for you guys, the busiest time of the year in some regards. How has that process changed over the last couple of years, and where are you guys in terms of putting together the roster for next year?
You know, the NIL, the transfer portals become, the way that teams are filling out their rosters. You know, we were really fortunate where we didn't, we've only had a couple kids transfer, a couple of the walk-ons and Jackson Skipper. So this year, unlike the last couple of years where we've had to replace 7 guys, we're looking to fill out a couple spots. It's been a much more targeted, focused kind of off-season where we're not trying to replace, the whole team essentially.
You guys, as you just mentioned, bring back a large chunk of your team, which is a little bit different than it's been the last couple of years. Obviously, you have that benefit of continuity, but has it made it a little harder to recruit some of these guys in the transfer portal because you probably don't have as much playing time to sell them?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's the challenge too, is that we have a bunch of guys returning, 4 out of 5 starters, and so it gets a little bit more difficult recruiting as far as the opportunity and playing time available. I'm also trying to balance the fact that we have some really good young players in our program, that trying to gauge whether, how ready they'll be next year.
Losing a guy like Aaron Deloney and just kind of everything that he's meant for this program, Matt Veretto, you're losing a couple of other guys, but what does it mean to kind of try and replace those guys from a production perspective, but also just from a leadership perspective?
Aaron did an incredible job leading us this year and was the most productive he's been on the court. So it's a huge deal trying to replace him. And Matty, in 2 years, what he meant to us, and he was another guy that played hard every day, brought leadership in his own way. So that's always, for me, the thing that I'm making sure we have covered. And Nick's going to be the leader of this year's team, and we'll see what other guys kind of step up alongside him. But you're not going to be able to replace someone like Aaron Deloney and Matt, his shooting and what he brought to us.
One of the big questions for this team, based on what happened at the end of the year this year, TJ Long. What's the latest on him?
Yeah, I hope by July, when we come back for summer school, he's ready to go. Avoided surgery, avoided major injury, and so he was on crutches for quite a while. He's off crutches now. But it's just going to be some time. We want to be really cautious with him. TJ Hurley has been shut down all spring also with plantar fasciitis, which is another thing that just takes time. So hopefully those 2 guys, by the time we get back for July, are back and 100%.
How confident do you feel in kind of continued growth and production from Sam Alamutu? Because it feels like you guys really leaned on him a lot more towards the end of the year than you did even in the middle of the year.
Yeah, Sammy had a great year. Provided a lot of stuff for us. Rebounding, toughness plays. I thought the Duke game might have been the best game he's played. Probably try to play him more like a guard this year than a forward like he played this year out of kind of necessity.
Who are some of the guys that you're looking at who maybe had a smaller role this year who have the opportunity to kind of take on a bigger role next year?
We have 2 young big kids that we're really high on in Noah and Seth, and Noah obviously redshirted. Seth, I thought, got better as the year went on. Obviously didn't play a lot, but got forced in action in that Duke game and did a really nice job. Those 2 guys specifically, is going to be interesting to see how much of a jump they make.
You look back at that Duke game, and you guys were in that game for 35 minutes. What does it kind of say about how close this program is to kind of having that breakthrough again in the NCAA tournament, and how do you get there?
We've really represented ourselves really well in the last bunch of times we made it to the tournament, but we want to do more than that. And so what does it take to get there? I think specifically moving to next year based on this year's team, we've got to develop some kind of post presence and be able to play, with our back to the basket and be able to have some balance that way. We were really relying on the 3-point shot. And then, with Matt and AD graduating, we're losing a lot of shooting. We need guys within the program to get better, to keep the court space so that we can continue to play the way we want to play.
UVM has a trio of freshmen coming in next year, but also 2 transfers. NCAA rules prohibit the school from talking about a kid until they have actually admitted and signed a letter of intent. But Jalen Young from Memphis and Shai Odom from Howard have both announced on social media that they will join the Cats coming up next winter.